to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. As New Yorkers, we're very loyal to our sports teams. My next guest is Johnny MacDonald. He hosts a podcast called Rooting for Laundry, where he roots for his local New York teams. Unfortunately, one of them is the Mets, but we won't hold it against him. So without further ado, here's Johnny. So Johnny MacDonald, thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this, man. It's going to be fun.
Your podcast, Rooting for Laundry, it's a sports show. Now, you're a Mets fan, but also just a general New York fan. So just tell us a little bit about your podcast, where people could find it and kind of what the sort of theme is, because it seems like you put a comedic element to it, which is kind of different from your typical sports podcast.
Well, what it is, I'm a stand-up comedian myself in New York City. And being a comedian, you meet a lot of people from all over the world. New York City is the mecca of stand-up comedy. So a lot of people from all over the world move to New York to pursue it. And within my travels of going to perform at clubs, bars, or wherever, you meet different types of people from all over the world. So, I always wonder, like, oh, how's it to be a Pittsburgh Pirate fan or a San Jose Shark fan? So it's more about fandom in general. It doesn't have to be New York. I mean, it helps because, I'm very passionate about my fandom. I'm a Mets, Jets, Knicks, Rangers fan. So I'm passionate about those things. And I wonder who shares the same passion. Or like, I always wonder how it is to root for these teams, no matter how successful or unsuccessful. Why do you root for them? A lot of people root for teams for various reasons. You know what I'm saying? And it always interests me why people would root for the teams they root for. Like, I had a friend rooted for the Miami Dolphins because he liked the colors. You know what I'm saying? The colors at first, where most of my fandom, which is mostly New York teams, came from my father. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Mets fan because my father was a Mets fan, and we lived. I was born like within the shadows of Shea Stadium, like, and we lived literally 5-7 minutes from there. You know what I'm saying? When I was born, growing up, I moved further out into Queens, but like, we still had family in that area of Corona where we would come and go. We would walk to the games, or if we take the 7, it'd be like 1 or 2 stops. And, we go to a game, at Shea, and that's how I got my thing. My father was a Jets fan too. And, I took that from there. So that's how.
Funny you mentioned the stand-up comedy. Actually, one of your guests, James Camacho, actually, I know him as well. Actually, I had him on my show back in like the spring or summer. I can't remember. But yeah, I'm familiar with James, and I've gone to a couple of his shows, and I follow him on Instagram and Facebook.
Funny guy.
Yeah. And he travels, and everywhere he goes out of state,
he works hard.
He loves going to the baseball games.
Yeah, we had that conversation. So yeah, he's good. He's great.
So, so you're still in Queens now? Is that correct?
I'm still in Queens now. I never left.
Well, same way with the Bronx.
Different part of Queens, yeah.
But funny enough, even though the Bronx, it's like there's a lot of Met fans in the Bronx. Same way I'm sure there's a lot of Yankee fans in Queens. And
yes.
When both teams are good, I just think it's just going to a game is just exciting, especially if it's like Sunday night baseball or something on a summer night, or it's nice warm weather.
Absolutely.
And you got the fans driving back and forth.
Yeah.
But before we get into your show, just in terms of you mentioned like being at Shea Stadium, are you one of these fans who likes Citi Field, or you kind of wish they kind of stuck with Shea Stadium?
Oh no, I like Citi Field's fine. Shea Stadium is, it was just it came from the days of they had the cookie cutter stadiums. Like Shea Stadium was the same design as all the other multi stadiums like Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, where the team shared the NFL team and the MLB team shared the stadium, which back then it made a bunch of sense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, you save money, you don't have to build multiple stadiums. You know what I'm saying? Part of me thinks that. I was like, why do you build it? Let's let them play in the same. But I understand why they play in different stadiums. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, back then it was probably more cost efficient, to have one stadium, and and everybody just goes to that stadium, but there's no uniqueness to it. Like, one thing I like about baseball, and what's important, is the uniqueness of all the ballparks. You know what I'm saying? You have the Ivy, fence in Wrigley Field. You have the Green Monster in Boston. Kansas City has the water fountains. You know what I'm saying? And like baseball, I think it's the only sport where you design your ballpark.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's an advantage. It's really a home field advantage. It's not. It's like, like Yankee Stadium. The fence is like 7 feet in right field, so people can plunk home. So your left-handed batter could pluck home runs over it easily. You know what I'm saying? It's like that was always the uniqueness. You don't hear about the NBA. The Knicks rim is lower than the opponent's rim. So what I'm saying? So it's a different. Baseball is just the uniqueness of that. I always was intrigued by. But Shea Stadium, I have a lot of memories there. Granted, the '86 Mets, that's when I started paying attention to sports in general. So the '86 Mets was my introduction to sports. So, it holds a place in my heart, but it was the same, those cookie cutter stadiums there were like, and I was all for I was excited when both teams got a new ballpark. It was very exciting time in the city, and just to see something new in your lifetime. You know what I'm saying? And it's a ballpark designed for the next generation of fans. It should be around for the next, even though it seems like they build things really quick now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It might be around for the next, it should last for the next 60, 70 years, maybe beyond that.
I totally agree. And I was the same way with the new Yankee Stadium. Like, I'm a very traditionalist, and I thought, I won't like the new stadium, but actually even the first game I fell in love with it because like it kind of looked the same, the dimensions the same. And just for me, I think it was just the elevators. You could get out of the stadium in less than 30 seconds.
Well, yeah.
In the old days, it took you like 45 minutes to leave some of these stadiums because it was just like one ramp, and it was like everyone's walking.
Yeah, everybody's walking.
The Mets, obviously have a new owner, Steve Cohen. I'm sure you're happy. A lot of Met fans happy. And I got to say, they've been making more of the noise this offseason just with Cohen. And then they pull off that deal with Lindor. So, just as a Mets fan, like, how do you feel now going into the season where, past couple of years had some great pitching, now, decent hitting, but no bullpen. Now the Mets really looks like they're putting something serious together.
Yeah, I'm right now. Yeah, I'm excited as a Met fan. I'm as all the teams I root for. I'm just very more pessimistic, if that's the word. I like, all right, they got these guys, but watch them, lose have a great April, because the Mets I think the Mets are the best team in the history of April. They start off great, and the bottom falls out after that. So and you got the pitching still with Syndergaard and DeGrom, who's probably the best pitcher in baseball. You know what I'm saying? And you got a lot of pluses, but I'm a person, I'll wait and see. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's excited to get these guys in, but I've been down these roads where I remember the years when we signed Bobby Bonilla, Eddie Murray, Brett Saberhagen in '92, and that's supposed to be like, oh my God, this is going to be great, we're going to win, and then that really went the opposite way. I remember in 2002 they got Roberto Alomar, Mo Vaughn. I mean, they're a little bit older, but on paper this looks great. And even from the '06 to the Beltran, right, Reyes, who was great because not only they were good, but they weren't that old. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this was a team built, and that lineup with Delgado and LaDuca and that team was really, really, that 2016 was like one of the most disappointing teams for me because they lost to the Cardinals, but it was so like, that series was so close. And then, the N.A. Chavez catch, and I thought it was just destiny for us to win that year. And I feel that if they beat the Cardinals and played Detroit, they would have won.
Oh, yeah, I feel the same way.
So that hurts. So I remember '06 and then '07, '08, that's like, I think that's when they choked in like September, October, playing their way out of the playoffs. So it was just like, so I'm conditioned. Like 2015 was great because like, the World Series, we didn't expect that. It was so unexpected. And once the Cespedes deal happened, I didn't expect them to go that far. So when that happened, I'm like, oh my goodness, we're in the World Series. And then a team like the Royals, oh my God, that's a team you hate because it's like they didn't really have an all-star. And that was a pesky team, like from
Exactly.
Moustakas, Kane. They just went up and they just made contact and did everything you hated. I'm saying this, like they're not supposed to do that, and they did that. So, you
And of
know,
course, they had that unbelievable bullpen where, sixth inning on, lights out. And it's just, like I
yeah,
said, no one great player, but just did everything
yeah,
right. And
yeah.
just,
It was just, yeah, you hated that team. Like I can't even remember half the players because they weren't all-star cal. They were a unit. You know what I'm saying? They were a unit. They played together.
so the Mets have a few questions, probably some of the players that are in an interesting spot. One will be Seth Lugo, where it's like perfect long inning or type of 2 inning type of relief pitcher, but
Mm-hmm.
also the Mets try to make him a starter. I mean, do you think they should let him stretch him out to be a starter, or is he just more valuable, which I think he is, as this being a multiple, per week, bullpen, long reliever?
Well, I believe the only reason Lugo was starting is because the injuries. You know what I'm saying? And when you have them, you need a guy that you can rely on to go to long. You know what I'm saying? It's baseball has changed where remember, we growing up, we see guys pitch complete games, and that's almost done now. I mean, soon it's kind of like, like the NFL when you had like a featured running back, and now it's like two or three or four running backs is
Yeah.
normal now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's tied to baseball. Plus everybody getting hurt like Tommy John surgery and stuff like that. You saw how that affected Johan Santana. He basically sold his soul to the devil just to get the Mets their first no hitter, which is funny because you think about it, like the Mets have always been known for their pitching, and they never had it. They were the last team, even with all the expansions and stuff, if I'm not mistaken, to have a no hitter. And that was just so like that would be odd to hear. Like, oh, the Mets, all the pitching they had, they never had a no hitter. And Johan really sacked like after he pitched that no hitter, he was done.
Pretty much, yeah. I guess
So
I was more on Terry Collins could have made a decision on that, but
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, and probably Johan's like, yo, what was on the line. You knew it was I want to be a part of history. But at the same time, he was at that point in his career where it's probably like, all right, you do it now. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, yeah, like you said with Lugo, yeah, I think whatever they need him to be. I mean, thank goodness they have a guy like that. You know what I'm saying? I see him the way I see him now. It's like if you need a long guy, if you need a fifth starter or a starter because you got an injury, put him in there. And that's the way I think whatever they want him to do is fine. And that's good to have a player like that to be a pitcher to be, that versatile.
and now that getting back to the starting rotation, interesting. A lot of eyeballs going to be on is Noah Syndergaard. Obviously hurt last year, a little bit disappointment, the whole Thor thing, stuff like that. But like I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on him because Degrom can't always be an ace like every 2 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
someone else has to step
Yeah.
up, and you're going to need Noah. I mean, so what's like the general Met fan feeling on Noah Syndergaard?
Well, I mean, I'm so glad we have him. We really in that deal, I remember it was what's the deal again when they got him and Darno
Yeah, I think
and they
for
sent
Bill for R.A. Dickey. So
Dickey, and Dickey was older. I mean, he was very fortunate to be in the position with the Cy, win the Cy Young here, and which was the guy record. I remember having a Dodger fan, Brian McDaniel, on my podcast. He was saying, Kershaw should have won that year, which is probably true. But Dickey, so I
for
mean, we got
knuckleball was
him.
pretty impressive.
Yeah. That's a good thing, and he rode that wave basically till the wheels fall off. And so to get to have Thor, you know, and still be considered an all-star pitcher is great. I'm excited because he's still our number two guy. You know what I'm saying? And DeGrom, like I said, I think he's the best pitcher in baseball. It's so unfortunate that whenever he pitches, there's no run support.
Yeah.
So you see DeGrom's record doesn't look great, but it's the ERA and all the other stats are spectacular because he's winning 1-0 games, and or I think a game he won all by himself because I think he drove in a couple of runs too. So it's I expect no Thor to be good. I expect him to still be our number two. And yeah, he did talk a lot of stuff, and but I think that goes with the territory. And I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be all right. But if he isn't all right, then he might be Matt Harvey 2.0. You know what I'm saying? But
and another point cog for the Mets is going to be Edward Diaz, who has all the stuff in the world. Now, 2 years ago, he was a disaster. Last year, not as bad, really. I know he had that one game against
but
the
it was
Yankees.
bad. Ooh, but yeah, it was bad.
But he had a better season, you got to say, overall. I meant, how do you think he's going to be this year?
I don't know. The jury's out with me on him because it was just whenever they put him in a game, I'll never forget the first opening week when they put him in that game where we had that game against Atlanta, and Atlanta is one of those teams like they always find a way. You know what I'm saying? That organization always finds a way to build stars and manage to win that division over and over and over and over again. And for Diaz to choke, I mean, I don't know what to think of him anymore. You know what I'm saying? I really don't expect. My expectations are very low. You know what I'm saying? And if he sort of proceeds them, then I go on looking at it. I was like, all right, not bad. You know what I'm saying? But I couldn't, like, those were some bad chokes. I mean, I've seen some, Armando Benitez, Familia had a couple of chokes, but I mean, that was bad. That was really, really bad. So
I remember 2 seasons ago, it was a really bad one against the Phillies. It gave like a tying home run and another home run right after this rough go of it. But some bright spots for the Mets. So got some great sluggers now, Pete Alonso as well as Dominic Smith. Now, unfortunately, they're both first basemen. Now, after getting a taste of the DH, would you like that moving forward as a Met fan, or you're
I'm all for the D. One thing I think that holds baseball back is tradition. It's such an old sport. It's one of the oldest. It's one of the only sports that doesn't have a time factor involved. You know what I'm saying? That's why games are so long. That's why I think there's a detachment to people and baseball now. I've taken my niece, nephews, even my kid. My kid is 3. But he doesn't understand it. But like, will he like baseball growing up? We're seeing, a generation where, Major League. Remember us growing up, baseball was the sport. It was the national. It was considered America's pastime. It was considered, the number one sport in America. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember the '94 strike, I think that probably took some people aback. And then the steroid allegations. I mean, the Sosa McGuire home run chase was I think that revived it for a bit, but it also came with a consequence because we all know they were juicing. So, and then ever since then, I think baseball's been on a little downhill. If you're not a baseball purist, baseball doesn't translate well with younger generation, in my opinion. Like a lot of people don't, like my niece and nephew don't know what the hell's going on when I took them to games. They're like, all right, what are they doing? Why is it taking so long? Why are they just standing there? You know what I'm saying? So it really is an old school sport. That's why I was the DH I'm actually for. I mean, I know it's ridiculous. I am a fan of the National League. I like the strategy of baseball when it comes to like the pitcher, the double switch. You take out the pitcher, now the pitcher is hitting third, and then you have the pinch hitter now playing third base. And then I like those strategies, even it result in the extra. And I like all that. And you can only do it in the National League, I guess, with this more strategic.
Just quickly, just before we wrap up, there's been some Mets players that have come to the Yankees, and have had success. So like, when back in '96, or actually technically came back, or even before it was in '94 for a little bit. When Strawberry played for the Yankees, that would be like Don Mattingly played for the Mets. Like, how did you feel about that? Did you want him to succeed? Did you want him to fail? Like, what was
like I stated before, I'm one of those probably in the minority. I don't hate the Yankees because if you think about it, they're in 2 different leagues. And growing up, remember, there was no interleague play. So I never understood that. In a point like, why do that team hates the other team? I mean, I understand now, especially after the 2000 Subway Series, honestly. But back then, I was like, all right, our teams, like the Mets, they don't play in the same division, so there's no effect on when we play each other. What now? It's what, a 4-game series or what? Or one series, 4 games about. So
That or
there's
3-3, but yeah.
yeah, those games are scheduled in like during the time where wins it's really because baseball's a marathon, 162 games. So around May, it's really not. I'm not saying it's meaningless because it counts on a record, but it's the Mets are not going to going to miss out the playoffs because the Yankees beat them in May. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was like Darryl, Doc were gods in my eyes, and when they won the '86, it was great. So to see Darryl and who still are my favorite players, to see them and get a ring in '96, that team and that '96 team, they were kind of the underdog. This is before the evil empire, in my opinion, because I remember growing up, Mets fan, I didn't know, like gaining knowledge of baseball. I knew who the Yankees were, but I didn't know the Yankees were the 27 time, or at the time, what, the 22, 21 time.
23 at that time, but yeah.
Yeah, champions. I didn't know, I knew about the legacy, but I didn't know how serious the legacy was. What I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, they won 20. I remember like one of my great, I think my father bought me, those baseball digests, and had like an almanac of the history of all the teams and the listings of, the yearly World Series winners and games.
Yeah.
And I would just see New York, American League, New York, just 8 in a row. They won 8 in a row, and then you just like, oh my God, so I didn't know. Now you gain the knowledge and understand the legacy. You're like, wow. So, and growing up, like I remember that the Mets were good and the Yankees were bad. Those '80 Yankees teams, they had pieces, but they weren't. I remember, because I consumed all of it. I remember Don, Mattingly, Ricky Henderson, Dave Winfield. Those teams are, those are great Hall of Fame players. But it just didn't, work. And remember, baseball wasn't the same. It was like regular season. Only 4 teams made it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that was it.
What was good about that '96 team, though, it was almost like a bunch of stars from other teams. Like, again, like from like the '80s, like coming back from it was almost like a movie, because you had Cecil Fielder from Detroit,
Cecil Fielder,
and David Cohn,
Wade Boggs,
and
David Cohn's another guy
from the '80s coming back for like one last ride. That's why.
Yeah, remember there was a lot of Mets. Like Joe Torre was a Met. The
Lee Mazzilli was a coach.
Yeah, Mel Stoudemire, David Cohn. Big fan. So I really liked that team. I remember when they won, and I had posters of that team hanging around because I was just happy for those guys, more so for the Yankees. And as a whole, because it was a drought. It seemed like a drought. It was the first time I experienced. It's the first time I experienced the Yankees winning a World Series. So as a Met fan, I know it sounds kind of blasphemous, but I was really happy for that team. I think it's till I guess 98, 99 to when there was like, especially the Worlds, that's when the division happened. That was like, all right, screw
the Mets got good, Yankees were good, and now
the Yankees were like buying players. You know what I'm saying? It was like, but there's no rules to that because baseball has no salary cap. So, and the Yankees are the richest team. So yeah, you can sign whoever you want. And that's when they were, the Roger Clemens. And that's when it was like getting out of hand. It was like, all right, you just can't buy everybody. But I've never, like I said, with those guys, the '96 Yankees, that was a team that I really, really enjoyed watching. I remember watching every pitch of the World Series. I remember being excited for all those guys. And it seemed like more of an underdog team. This was it's like before Darth Vader was Darth Vader. It's like watching, if you're a Star Wars guys, watching the first episode 1 with little baby Anakin Skywalker.
Because really the Braves were the Darth Vader. They had Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz all on top of their game.
But not only that, remember
so to beat them was like, whoa,
And not only that, they just came off of being World Series champions the year before. And if you're looking back, they were supposed to be the dynasty. Like they missed out on a lot of World Series they won 13 straight divisions.
But they just got 95. The Yankees blocked them in '96 as well as '99, and the Braves should have won more, but they didn't.
Just unfortunate for them. But that '96 Yankees, that was like an underdog team in my opinion. It was fun to watch. Good for the city. It's the first time because the '86 Mets. I was younger. I was like 9. So like even though I understood it, I'm kind of a late bloomer. But even though I understood it, I wasn't old enough to. I was cheering, but I wasn't old enough to
Yeah, you
like
don't. I'm the same way.
go to the parades. Yeah,
Yeah.
go to the like if I wanted to go to the parade or if I wanted to participate and stuff like when the Met like 2015, I went to the game 5 of the World Series when the game where the Royals clinched and won the thing. And I was so hyped. I was so like, oh man, if they really pull this off, I'm going to the parade. You will never hear the last of this. You know what I'm saying? I will forever, like this will be forever. But I wasn't. So the '96 Yankees was the closest, baseball. I didn't go to parade or games like that, but I watched every pitch and I was so locked in. So.
All right. Well, appreciate again. It's the rooting for laundry. Again, you're a New York guy, but specifically Mets, but you're a total New York guy. So where can people find your podcast?
Oh, it's on YouTube. Follow my YouTube channel, Johnny MacDonald. It has all the episodes. I've recorded 35, and it's on YouTube. It's also on any streaming service via Anchor Audio. It's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. All 35 episodes are there. I took a little hiatus, but I'm back. I'm back this Monday, and we'll have some more episodes. And it's just about really the majority. It's fandom. It's about how'd you like that team, and I go run down a timeline of the history, and where were you? How did you feel? Or when if the Yankees won the championship and stuff like that, it's a sports fan's dream. I'm hoping this could get bigger and better where I have like a guest like Spike Lee on and we could talk about stuff like that. What I'm saying? That's the mission. You know what I'm saying? So
totally. So one last question now. I'm gonna make it tough on you because again, you root for the laundry. So I'm gonna give you 2 players. You got to give me who's your number 1? Dallas Strawberry, Patrick Ewing.
Patrick Ewing.
I have to agree with that, but
because he's done so much for and even Darryl won in '86, but Patrick Ewing was such a staple for a long period of time. Nothing broke my heart when Darryl left for the Dodgers, and that was hurt right there. But it wasn't. But at the end of the day, it didn't work out. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
But Ewing, we got the best Ewing. Like just the longevity. Ewing's everything to me.
No, I agree with you. So we disagree on a lot of teams. The one team we can agree on are the Knicks. Unfortunately, they're terrible. Yeah.